In the shopping bag at the checkout counter lay an ordinary assortment of groceries, a bottle of baked milk, half a loaf of rye bread, oatmeal cookies with raisins, and a container of sour cream. Why did I get so much? I won't finish it all anyway. The thought, like a belated echo, crossed the woman's mind as she was already bagging her purchases. Her evening was packed with a long list of chores: repotting houseplants, deep cleaning, ironing a pile of laundry, and washing the floors. And it was for that last item that she had bought a powerful cleaning agent, which in her plan was meant to be a one-way ticket, quick, easy, and painless. Once, she had heard someone's story, perhaps a true one. It told of a man whose day had gone wrong from the start: an accident, his wife's infidelity, losing his job. But he held on with all his might. And then, returning home, he began to take off his shirt and noticed a missing button on his sleeve. This insignificant trifle was the last straw. The man couldn't take it anymore and took his own life. Margarita also had her button, her breaking point. Yesterday she had turned 27, but the day passed unnoticed by anyone. Not a single congratulation, not a single warm word. After all, those who truly care about you would never forget such a date. And if they did forget, there would be others willing to share a celebratory dinner with you. But in her case, there was no one. Her very birth was more of an unfortunate misunderstanding. By the time she was born, her parents already had children, a 4-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, a seemingly complete family. But one day, after abundant libations at a party, her father lost control, and marital duties were performed at an inopportune moment. Her mother didn't dare to have an abortion, and so, Margarita. Her birth was so unexpected that in her mother's eyes, when she looked at her youngest daughter, there was sometimes a fleeting hint of bewilderment. What are you doing here? If she had grown up capable, beautiful, intelligent, and cheerful, she would have been forgiven for this uninvited intrusion into the established family life. But Margarita was more like that extra element that could easily have been done without. Even her name, so beautiful and proud in her case, turned into an indistinct mumble. For the neighborhood children and classmates, it quickly transformed into an offensive nickname, Mimra, meaning a sullen, unattractive woman. Who does she take after? This question remained unanswered. Her parents were extraordinary people. Her father, tall, handsome, dark-haired, an athlete with boundless energy and strength. In their small town, he could outperform anyone in a feast, an argument, or a fight. Once in January, after having too much to drink, he went out to smoke on a 5th-floor balcony and fell into a snowdrift below the windows. Coming to his senses, he brushed himself off and returned to the apartment. Her mother, seeing him at the doorstep in just his underwear, barefoot and wet, almost fainted. But she had no time to faint. The head of the family demanded a shot of vodka and a snack. After all, you don't fall off a balcony every day. Nerves aren't made of steel. Having gotten what he wanted, her father went to sleep and woke up the next morning as if nothing had happened. Margarita's mother was distinguished by her sharp mind and diverse talents. The apartment was adorned with her embroideries, depicting playful kittens and rural landscapes. Additionally, she sang, traced images, and colored pictures, sometimes surpassing the original. In the evenings, she told the children self-composed fairy tales, where the main character was an obedient girl named Lesia, whose fate mirrored Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, and Snow White. And, as with her paintings, her interpretations often proved more interesting than the originals. Another of her passions was gardening. She grew violets, geraniums, and asparagus on the windowsill. One day, she came across a book titled Citrus Garden in an Apartment, and she became captivated by the idea of growing a lemon tree. But all her efforts were in vain. Instead of a lush tree, a sickly, frail sprout poked out of the soil. Useless book, her mother concluded, sending the book to the shelf and the pot with the dying plant to the balcony. Margarita felt sorry for the unfortunate lemon. She secretly studied the brochure and began to care for it. About 6 months later, a sprawling tree bloomed on her windowsill, and soon 3 large fruits appeared on its branches. Her mother immediately moved the lemon to the living room, and at her birthday party, guests admired this achievement, claiming that a talented person is talented in everything. The older children took after their parents. Mikhail was strong and athletic, and Marina was beautiful and gifted. And only Margarita. Take her appearance, for example. It was all butts. Tall, but hunched and clumsy. Her legs were long, but knock-kneed, with thick ankles. Her figure was seemingly decent. She had a waist. Her stomach didn't protrude, but there was no chest or hips, just a dismal flatness, and her face was simply ugly, without any butts. A round forehead, round eyes, almost no eyelashes or eyebrows. Her mouth was not lips, but just an opening for eating. Narrow, unremarkable. And above all, this rose a nose, huge like a toucan's. But at least the toucan had bright plumage. What would happen next? Quiet and withdrawn, Margarita struggled with communication and didn't know how to make friends. Her reticence was due to a childhood stutter, which over time had turned into a habit of silence. Oral subjects in school were incredibly difficult for her. Her thoughts were clear and coherent in her head, but when she tried to voice them, they came out as complete confusion. The teachers, unfortunately, showed no interest in this problem, preferring not to delve into the reasons for her difficulties, for, as is well known, those who think clearly express themselves clearly. Margarita's successes in the exact sciences went unnoticed. In secret, Margarita found solace in writing poetry, which she recorded in a thick brown notebook. One day, when the notebook was almost full, her sister, Marina, discovered these poems, retyped the best of them, and sent them to the local youth newspaper under her own name. The poems were accepted and published, bringing Marina recognition and praise. Her literature teacher immediately gave her an excellent grade for the year, and the school principal presented her parents with a certificate for their success in raising their daughter. Her mother, moved to tears, attributed Marina's talent to her own genes. Margarita couldn't prove her authorship, as her sister had thoughtfully destroyed the notebook of poems. No one would have believed the words of a quiet and inconspicuous girl, and attempts to prove anything would have been useless. After this, Margarita stopped writing poetry. Another incident was also linked to Marina. Her older sister attended art school, where she was helped to develop the talent she inherited from her mother. However, despite her abilities, Marina's grades were average. One day, Marina left a pencil sketch on the table that needed to be corrected. Margarita studied the drawing for a long time, then picked up a pencil and made the necessary changes. Marina, not wanting to waste time on corrections, took the revised sketch to school. The next day, the teacher called her mother to school and expressed dissatisfaction that the parents were interfering with the learning process. Her mother sincerely assured the teacher that she had not touched her daughter's drawings. The teacher then stated that the girl had immense talent that needed to be developed, and that perhaps she found it difficult to concentrate at school. As a result, Marina was recognized as a genius at home and bought a new dress. No one suspected that the modest Margarita had a hand in the drawing. Since then, Marina regularly asked her sister to help her with her drawings, which strengthened her reputation. In the end, the sisters practically finished art school together. Margarita herself didn't understand why she helped her sister, but she continued to do so. Misha, her athletic brother, continued his basketball career after school. He now lived in Kazan and worked as a coach. Their father explained that he didn't become a big sports star because of envious people. Their mother, however, emphasized that he was now devoting his energy and abilities to teaching children, which was a noble pursuit. The beautiful and talented Marina was expelled from the second year of a metropolitan art academy. There, too, envious people had hindered her. However, her beauty remained, and soon Marina married a Spaniard named Federico and moved with her husband to Spain. Her parents and brother went to visit them. Before leaving, her mother called Margarita and told her that she wouldn't be able to congratulate her on her birthday because it was too expensive. Margarita wanted to suggest talking online, which would have been free, but she remained silent, as usual. After school, Margarita also planned to go to university, dreaming of becoming a fashion designer. However, her parents' surprised look made her change her mind. She enrolled in a sewing college and then got a job at a hosiery factory in her hometown. After starting to earn money and moving out of her parents' house, Margarita enrolled in a correspondence program at the Faculty of Light Industry. 3 months ago, she received her higher education diploma, having barely passed most subjects. At the graduation ceremony, the newly minted fashion designers presented their work to the public. Margarita had sewn an evening dress, a pantsuit, and a skirt with a jacket based on her own sketches, using unusual fabrics. Several years earlier, she had become fascinated with batik, silk painting. The young instructor, Evgenia Vasilievna Sorokina, whose perfect figure the garments were designed for, was supposed to model Margarita's outfits. Margarita left the sketches and models with the department. However, when she came to retrieve them a few days before graduation, they were gone. The secret of their disappearance was revealed by Natasha, a lab assistant, who had accidentally seen Sorokina take the models. Why would she need them? Margarita wondered. "Listen, you're just naive," the lab assistant drawled. "There's a competition for young fashion designers at a Moscow fashion studio. The winner will get a job right there in Moscow." Natalia, though gazing at the ceiling, carefully watched Margarita's reaction. The woman who had just been robbed. How did she manage to leave her sketches there? Margarita asked, bewildered. "Do you really not understand, or are you just pretending?" The lab assistant retorted with a sneer. "Sorokina's designs are so bad, you wouldn't even want to take out the trash in them." "But that's..." Margarita stammered, searching for words. "That's dishonest." "Well, yes it is," Natalia cheerfully agreed, looking at Margarita as if she were a rare animal. "But on the other hand, would you have taken them there?" "Of course not. and Evgenia didn't want to miss such an opportunity. There was, undoubtedly, some truth in her words. Margarita, not knowing what else to say, turned to leave. "Hey, wait!" the lab assistant called out to her. "Are you just going to leave it like that and not even complain? To the dean or the rector, for example?" Margarita wanted to explain that proving her authorship in her situation was a difficult task, and as experience had shown, doomed to failure from the start. Sorokina, without a doubt, had accounted for all possible risks. Besides, she was a department assistant, a promising young instructor, working on her dissertation, and respected at the institute. Whom would they believe? Her, the smart and beautiful woman, or the plain-looking average correspondence student who couldn't even articulate her thoughts properly? Margarita could have added that to achieve victory. It's clearly not enough to be right. One must also acquire claws, teeth, armor, and a spiky tail to convincingly prove their point. Instead, Margarita briefly replied, "No, I won't." And she left, forgetting to say goodbye. The lab assistant Natalia watched her for a few seconds, tapped her temple with her finger, and mumbled, "They say fools aren't grown in gardens. They just appear. It's a sin not to deceive someone like that." And she immersed herself in her papers once more. Margarita finished her tasks by 9:30 in the evening. She hadn't procrastinated. The decision had been made long ago. She just had to distract herself for a short while. The TV series Medics started at 8 p.m. Margarita was a devoted fan and never missed an episode. If there was anything she regretted leaving behind in this life, it was Medics. After taking a bath, Margarita sat down on the sofa, clutching a white plastic bottle of medicine in her hands. A glass of water sat on the table in front of her. It was time to act. Margarita took a deep breath and resolutely twisted off the cap. And at that very moment, the phone rang. "Won't they even let me die in peace?" she thought ironically. "Should I answer or not? The number is unfamiliar." Most likely, someone had just dialed the wrong number. As she hesitated, the phone fell silent. The quiet seemed sudden and deafening. Margarita caught her breath and reached for the cap again. The phone rang once more. This time, she decided to answer. What if the caller needed something urgently? It's best not to leave unfinished business. "Yes?" she said uncertainly. "Margarita, is that you?" a woman's voice asked. Her tone held a mix of fawning, guilt, and defiance, even demanding, as if she hadn't yet decided how to act. You don't recognize me?" "Yes. It's Evgenia Sorokina. Evgenia Vasilyevna. Do you remember me?" "I remember," Margarita replied. "Am I interrupting you?" Sorokina seemed unable to start the conversation. "A little," Margarita chuckled, still twirling the bottle of capsules in her hands. "I won't be long," Evgenia hurried. "I just need to... Well, I took your designs to the competition in Moscow. I'm calling from there. From Moscow." Having said this, she fell silent, waiting for a reaction. "I know. I was told," Margarita answered calmly. "Told? By whom?" "Well, perhaps it doesn't matter." Sorokina interrupted her thoughts. "So you know everything?" "Well, that's great. For whom?" "Oh, Margaritochka, you ask such strange questions." Evgenia laughed nervously. "I just wanted to say that, well, your designs took first place," she blurted out. "First place?" Margarita stammered, shocked. "Yes, you see how wonderfully everything turned out." "It's hard to believe," Sorokina exclaimed. "Listen, maybe I didn't act very well, but perhaps... You shouldn't have any doubts." All right, Sorokina said conciliatorily. "It was a bad thing to do. I should have warned you." You shouldn't have taken them at all." "Well, you're right, but what's done is done. Why are you calling so I can congratulate you?" "Listen, let's talk like adults. I have a proposal for you." Sorokina spoke quickly, as if afraid of being interrupted. "As the winner? Well, they offered me not just a job at their studio, but to launch a clothing line. They liked the design solutions, and the fabrics were also very well received." "What do you need from me?" Margarita asked quietly. Encouraged that the conversation had finally turned to business, Sorokina cleared her throat and declared, "Your sketches, everything you have. I'll figure something out about the fabric. For now, the main thing is the models themselves. And then what? You'll need to constantly create something new. And I'll think about then later." Evgenia waved off carelessly. "So, will you help? Of course I'll pay. You'll be satisfied, I promise. You need money, don't you?" Margarita's silence was taken by Sorokina as a sign of agreement, which gave her voice confidence and authority. "There's nothing for you to do in Moscow," she declared. "I'll come myself and pick everything up. We'll agree on the price when we meet. I can come by tomorrow evening. I'll call, and you'll tell me where to meet." Margarita remained silent, which made Sorokina uneasy. "So, we have a deal? Should I come back for the sketches?" "Come back," Margarita finally replied, breaking the prolonged silence, and hung up the phone. For about 15 minutes, she stared motionless at a worn spot on the carpet. Then she gulped down the glass of water, shook her head, and resolutely said, "All right, Mimra, it's time to act. I've been sitting around too long." The bottle of capsules was still clenched in her hand. She stood up and went to the bathroom, opened the bottle, poured the contents into the toilet, and flushed it away. After that, she performed 3 more important actions. First, she called her landlady, a kind elderly woman who also lived alone, and informed her of her departure tomorrow. Margarita decided to leave her flowers as a gift, deciding she would grow new ones in Moscow. Then she packed her modest belongings into an old blue bag, not forgetting to include her most valuable possessions, albums, sketchbooks, and fabric samples. And finally, she looked up the train schedule to Moscow and booked a ticket for the evening of the next day. Now all that remained was to visit the factory in the morning and submit her resignation. Of course, she could have simply taken a vacation and kept her apartment just in case. However, Margarita deliberately decided to sever all ties with the past. For a person who has decided to start a new life, there should be only one path: to the future. As the old joke goes, dead, so dead.